Thank you, Louise, and welcome, Chris and Jeff, to tonight's session. Thank you for giving of your own evening time to join us tonight. It's my pleasure to once again welcome Jacqueline Calderon, who will be facilitating tonight's session. Jacqueline has done a number of webinars for us this term, last year, and we're looking forward to her work in the winter-spring program. So welcome, Jacqueline. So we can get started. I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Syria. Thank you, Louise. And I think Jeff has actually stepped away for a second, and it's just Chris and I. Let me just start with the web tour. Oh, Jeff's back. Yay! So I'm going to pull up the wiki that I had planned. It's nap time already. I'm going to throw up the wiki. So this is what I had planned to use to guide our conversation tonight, but I'm really looking for kind of an interactive discussion and sharing, and oh, that's always good. Just a kind of sharing component and learning from each other as opposed to it being as one-sided. And these were the 5 kind of big ideas I was hoping to talk about, was the types of devices that we see students coming in with, and just kind of discussing any of the struggles or anything that you've noticed with that. Digital tools, what type of tools are working that span all different types of devices? What type of learning activities have been successful using those tools? A little bit about differentiating the instruction with BYOD, so how has that facilitated some of the differentiation? And then at the end, our whining and complaining part, some of the struggles and that type of stuff. So I'm going to just start by hopping onto the types of devices page. So what I have on this page is a Padlet wall where I was, we have a really small group tonight, so we might be able to do most of this through discussion as opposed to some of the typing stuff. But I'll be especially interested to hear your take on some of this, Chris. What type of devices are students coming to school with for you? Or coming into school with?
In my particular class, I have a couple kids with iPads. Most kids have either a Mac device, like when I say device, like a Mac laptop, or a PC type laptop, either Lenovo, Dell, or Acer, or something like that.
Cool. What about you, Jeff? Have you had students showing up? Like, have you noticed a certain type of device more often than others? Oh, sorry. Have you noticed any students coming into classes with any sorts of specific devices more than others? Like, have you noticed students bringing in any specific types of devices? Nice. Yeah, I really noticed the iPod touches and the iPhones around the school on a day-to-day before. I mean, we have open networks, and we have had for years. So we'll have in a classroom right now a few, unless the teacher really pushes it, a few students with tablets and computers. But the iPods and the iPhones are everywhere. Those devices have been absolutely everywhere. So we're really working on trying to ask the students to bring in more, and in the fall we'll have that problem sorted. So if you scroll down on that, the types of devices page down below that Padlet wall, you can see I made a list of different types of devices. So there's a table there, and I've listed some different devices and some of the kind of pros and cons. and anything else that we, that's perfect. Anything that comes up, we can, add to, I can add to this later so it's on the wiki. A Windows Surface is a tablet that looks like an iPad, but it has a keyboard attached. And the ones, and I've only played with a Windows tablet very minimally, but the one thing I've noticed when looking at the tablets is that there's two different types of Windows Surfaces. There's the ones that are really a mobile device. They look the exact same, which is a problem, that's confusing. But the lower end ones, anything $400 or less, appears to only be running a mobile Windows operating system. So it's not a full Windows. It's still a mobile, like a tablet. But the higher ones, so anything that starts going up $700, $800, they're running a full Windows operating system. So you can use a USB stick and you can share files on them, and you can install programs on them. Whereas the mobile one just uses the apps. Have you seen any of those in your class at all, Chris?
Not the Surface. Mainly tablets, either Windows-based or Android-based or iPads.
How do you find the Android tablets keeping up speed-wise? Are they doing pretty good?
I think there's like one kid with one.
Okay.
And a lot of the times it's okay for internet.
Right.
So as long as it's the internet, then they're okay. But any more and that's the thing. Like, it depends on how powerful of the work you expect them to do. One thing though, we didn't consider a device, a classroom device that we asked them to bring in to be an iPod, an iTouch, or a smartphone. In fact,
right.
We're trying to discourage smartphone usage because it's very limited. Very, very limited. You can't really do any processing on it. The screen is very small. It might be great for polling, but it's so limited, and it's more, the kids end up just texting on it.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing. We're asking all of our grade 9s to have a computer or a tablet with a keyboard. We're not going to insist, but a tablet with a keyboard is what we're going to ask for. And the devices that we'll give students that can't bring in their own device will be old netbooks and maybe a few Chromebooks if we need to. So I just made a list here of different types of devices. I think we all kind of know the PC and Apple laptops, and the pros are that we know them already, and a lot of students have them in their house already. A Chromebook. So a Chromebook is actually, I think, going to be pretty big for a lot of my students up where I am next year in the fall. I think a lot of them will be getting them for Christmas. So a Chromebook looks exactly like a laptop, and it is a laptop. But the difference is it runs a Chrome operating system on it, which is a Google product. And basically all it is a web browser. Yeah, Google Chrome. So basically you open this laptop, you turn it on, it starts up quick, just like a tablet. But it's got a full keyboard, it looks like a laptop, and it just runs Google Chrome, the web browser. So for all your word processing, you use Google Docs or Google Apps, and there is a file storage system on it, unlike a tablet, so you can store usually a couple gigs worth of stuff right on the laptop, and you can run, if you've downloaded your email, if you've opened your email, you can write emails offline, so if you lose the internet, and then it will send them later, and you can play and word process and play games. But everything is web-based other than that, and it's all through the browser. Yep, you can use all the Google apps. Anything that works on Chrome works on those. And in comparison to a tablet, they're really nice because they run Flash. They run most websites. So, Chris is talking about math, and the problem is that a lot of the tablets won't run all of our ministry math resources. They won't run gizmos. They won't run some of the D2L has like interactive things on it, and the clips, things like that don't run on a lot of tablets, but they will on the Google Chromebook. The only downfall on the Chromebook is they're not really good at media creation, but I think this is why it's kind of nice to have a classroom with all sorts of devices. if I have students in there with iPads and computers that can create media, high-end media, and then I have a few kids with the Chromebook that turns on and goes quick, and can run all the flash and the gizmos, then if kids are working in groups, then they have all their bases covered. I think up in my situation, we'll see a lot of the Chromebooks because you can get them for $229. At the very bottom of that page, I have a PDF there, choosing a device, blended learning. Basically, this is just a handout of a hand that we gave to grade 9 parents, or I guess this year they're grade 8 parents, but parents of our grade 9s coming in next year. So we had a parents' night, and we've given them that handout. So this wiki will be up long after tonight for years and years, and you can access and take a look at that if you want. If we create anything else, I'll add it up there. If you had anything you wanted to share, I can make you a collaborator on the wiki, no problem. But that's just a handout that we created about the different types of devices and the strengths and the weaknesses of them. One thing we have tried to ask is if we're a little bit worried about some of the Android tablets that are really small, small memory. So that's one of our big concerns. So we did try to ask them, if at all possible, if they're doing an Android tablet, if they're buying a new one, not one they already have, that it's a 2 gig of RAM on it. Like the Google Nexus tablet has 2 gigs and it seems to work pretty good. Our parents were actually pretty receptive. Now I'm not sure if it's just speaks to the types of parents that come out to Parents' Night all the time, but our biggest concern was parents that have high-end laptops already at home for their students. So the students have a $900, $1,100 laptop sitting at home. They're nervous about sending them to school with those. And so they're kind of thinking, do I have to buy a second, cheaper device for school use? And that's their biggest concern. It wasn't as much concern from the parents that don't have one, because we have said up right up front, if you can't afford one, if you don't have one on the first day of school, you just need to come and see us and we'll sign you one out for the year. And I think my demographics is pretty different than probably Chris's, and definitely from Newmarket, where Sir William Rock School is. So I think we'll have more students that do need assistance. But what have you found, Chris? How are parents receptive? How receptive are parents in your school to having to provide devices?
I think overall it was good. Good feedback in general. I think they were surprised and interested to see that technology is being brought into the classroom. We didn't have very many concerns from parents, and my classroom had a variety. Like, not all kids came with the latest and greatest. Some kids came with, a couple-year-old laptop, and that's just fine as long as it can, it can run the software and run the basic stuff. It's fine. They don't have to have a gaming level machine.
That's great. That's awesome. Parents were so receptive. And yeah, I agree. It is expensive school supplies. I think what we're hoping is, so say a Chromebook is $229, and then some of the tablets, they might go up for like $350 if they wanted an iPad. We're kind of hoping that, that's a one-time purchase. Hopefully it will last them the 4 years, depending upon the device that they do purchase. And you think about the school supplies that are paid throughout the 4 years. We're hoping to reduce a good portion of that. There'll still be the odd thing that students need, but not to the same extent. Can you speak to that, Louise? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Can you grab the mic and hop in?
Sure. I was just thinking that for tablets, specifically the iPad, we're buying some of the keyboard kits can add to the cost of it. That there are apps for swipe texting where they just have to drag their finger around the keyboard and kind of like connect the dots. and Android phones, a lot of them have swipe text options on them, and I actually find the swipe text is really fast. And actually works pretty well, especially with some of the word prediction is pretty accurate as well. So that may be something that if those apps are usable on some of the tablets that that the kids might be using, that might eliminate the cost of the keyboard add-on.
Right, yeah. I would just want to make sure that students have absolutely no hesitation to full creative and procedural writing. That there's no barrier to
exactly.
No, we don't want to make their learning surface. We don't want any sort of reason why a student couldn't create and produce scripts, lengthy scripts and interviews and blog posts that are a page or too long on a regular basis. We don't want to encourage any sort of surface level conversation only.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? We want to deepen the learning, not surface it. So if a kid, and our whole purpose of this is the personalization for us, anyways. Maybe, and I'm sure Chris will have something to add to this. Is the personalization aspect for the kid. So it's all about what works for the kid. So if that works for the kid and that kid isn't using that as an excuse why they can't create, then absolutely, like we would never actually insist on a keyboard. We're just suggesting, when we say it briefly, what are you asking kids to bring? Tablets with a keyboard or a laptop. That's just how we're kind of saying it, but we've just made it clear. Yeah. Very much like what Chris said. It's not about what device you have. It's really about, can you just do day-to-day work? And then we're totally happy. So that's a really neat point. And I hadn't even considered any of that. I'll have to investigate some of those swipe text apps.
Yeah, and I guess it depends as well at grade level, and because most of them you're talking, what grade have you seen as being the lowest grade where kids might be encouraged to use devices they have? Because I cannot believe how many 8-year-olds I see with iPods now.
I was over visiting an elementary school close to me the other day, and she said, we can't wait until you guys have your run through next year because we'd like to follow soon. With starting with their higher grades and working their way down, with making this a school requirement to see where it goes and start working like this. They're not rushing into this by any stretch of the imagination, but that's already on their radar. Did you have something to add to that, Chris?
No, I was just going to say that with regards to the day-to-day, we try to make it as encouraging as possible for the teachers as well. So one of the things we said is, if what you've been doing regularly in the class is working, don't go changing it just because you have this, the kids are bringing the tablet or a device. Don't change it to make it more technology. Let the technology work for you. So for us in math, we don't use it every day. Some other classes, it works every day, but for us, we don't use it every day, and we're not compelled to use it every day. We use it when it makes sense.
And that is exactly our philosophy, and you led me right into the next thing that I was hoping that we could talk about, and that was the digital tools. And what we so these are the discussions that we've had with teachers at our school as we're going down this process of getting ready. The first part is that digital tools, there's kind of two components for our teachers to be thinking about. One is the simple mechanics of BYOD, meaning, how are you going to run your classroom? The second part is what we're nicknaming around our school, the fun part of the BYOD, and that's where they're enabling us, having the technology infused right into the class with every student, is allowing us to create a student-centered learning environment with a real focus on that, creativity, communication, critical thinking, collaboration piece. For the mechanics, we ask our teachers to consider three things. What will you use to share material to your students? So how are you going to, all those paper handouts, if you don't have a need for paper, if there's no purpose to having it in paper versus digital, and then sometimes there will be a need for it to be paper, and in that case, that's fine. But if you don't have a need to have it paper, then how are you getting that information to your students? The next question is, how will you collect or get work from your students? So if they want to submit assignments to you, how are you going to get it from them? And then how are you going to provide descriptive feedback to your students? And then we have a fourth question that we throw around, and it's how are your students going to collaborate with each other? And it sounded like you, Chris, had your Google Apps up and running, takes care of most of that. Is that what you're using for those types of mechanics mostly?
For math, I use two things, mainly the board website tool Moodle. So I post all my notes on there ahead of class. So actually, on average, I would say half the kids every day will have a screen open, and they'll follow along the lesson with me on their screen instead of looking on the board. Some may make annotations to the document, which is in a PDF format. And others they'll use pencil and paper, and which is just fine. Other ways is, that's one way for sharing, but it's very one-way directional, it's transmissive. We'll use the Google Docs for maybe releasing an assignment where they will make a copy of it and then work on that copy as their own personal copy and then share it with me.
So you share the document out to them?
Yeah, so I'll create a document and I'll just share it and I create a class list using the contact tool within Google Documents. And then I'll just share that document with view privileges to the entire class. They can view it, but they can't edit it. So what they will do is then make a copy of it, and I will direct them as to how I would like them to name it. So maybe they'll put the type of class, their name, and then the title of the document. So when they share it back with me, I can quickly find it, and then I can put their documents into a folder within Google Documents.
That's great. And Jeff, I'm not sure, have you used Google Docs at all before? So actually, the very top of this page right now, yes, absolutely. So at the very top of this page, there's a link, and I'll copy this and put this in the chat. Oh, maybe I won't copy this. There we go. Here is that is totally not what I meant to do. Please ignore that. And let's try, there we go. That second link there, the bit.ly/1DEEXI8. That's a link to a Google Doc I created that has a list of different tools and then resources. Let me just open it up so that I can see it. So it has a whole list of tools, a description of the tool, what devices it works on, and the cost of the tool, and then some how-to resources. And one of the tools there is Google Drive. And so there is a how-to document and on how to use Google Drive and some links to some information on that. So if that's a tool you're interested in looking in that further, then by all means spend some time playing with that. And I'm going to try, bear with me for a second here, I'm going to try and open that same tool up in the web tour here. Let's see how this works. Do you guys see the sharing digital tools for BYOD on the screen? On the, like in the Blackboard screen? Oh, great. Thanks. Hello, Janice. Welcome. Janice, did you want to test out your microphone and see if it worked? Okay. Janice, do you want to give us just a quick kind of, okay. And that's not a problem. The chat there is absolutely great. Could you just give me a quick background on how you're interested in BYOD, or if you've had experience with it in your class, or you're looking at starting to use it some more, or what kind of your goals are? And while you're typing that up, I'm just going to say, Jeff, so this page that we have here, the Sharing Digital Tools, this is one of the Google Docs. So you can see that we can all collaborate on it together. I've made my Google Doc here open so that anyone that has the link can edit it. You can, like Chris was explaining earlier, you can set it for only viewing. Oh, I hear a microphone. Jen,
yep.
Is that you?
So it's working?
Oh,
awesome,
welcome.
Thanks.
It is. Oh, so that's great. So you run a Tech Tuesday for your staff. Now, does your school have students bringing your own devices? And are you elementary or secondary?
We're grade 6 to 8, and we do have kids bringing their own devices.
And where are you from, Janice?
I work in Peel.
Awesome. Thank you. What types of devices do you see your students coming with, Janice?
Oh.
Does it range from?
Everything. So tablets, a few laptops. The variety is unbelievable.
Great. Absolutely great. Okay, so just a few of these different tools that we have on here, and then I was hoping that maybe you might have some ones to add. So these are tools that either work on a wide variety of devices or on any device. So the first one I put up is one of the few paid ones that I have on here, but there is a way to use it for free, just very limitedly. But the reason I like Voicethread with BYOD is because the iPad lets you write on the screen, but it's the only device that lets you really create those types of tutorials, or getting inside a kid's head that where they can write on the screen and explain their thinking. But I find that the Voicethread helps even the playing field for different types of devices. And so I really enjoy, and I do spend the $79 to create an educator account so that I can give my students their own accounts for Voicethread. And we actually use this one a fair amount in math for some of our students. Basically, with the Voicethread, you can import, and students can create their own Voicethreads if they want, or the teacher can do it. Import pictures or images or short video clips. Yes, Louise, I was playing with the same thing too. Or you can bring in PowerPoint presentations, and then you can record your voice as you write on the screen on each slide as it goes through. And so the Voicethread has, you can go and create an account unless you create, Louise has found out, 4 Voicethreads, and then it makes you delete them to keep going. I do use the educator account because then I can create an account for each one of my students, and they can create their own Voicethreads. They can share them with each other. I find it really conducive, and they can use that same kind of tutorial making or explaining their thinking on pretty much any device. Basically, the device has to be able to run the Flash or in the Java. So for iPads and iPod touches, you do need to download the free app for it. But then for the other devices, you just go to the website and use the web browser. Have you guys, other than Louise, because I know Louise has, she's a Voicethread fanatic, have you guys used Voicethread at all before? Is that something you'd like me to show you one quickly? To show you Voicethread quickly? Okay, let me just pull one of these ones up. Let's see. Give me 2 seconds, sorry. Louise, I'm not ignoring, well, I kind of am ignoring your question. I don't know the answer, sorry. I don't know how long.
That's okay. I've just never challenged it, but I hadn't thought of kind of giving a voiceover of the PowerPoint, and I thought, oh, that could end up being a fairly long clip. Maybe I'll test it out.
Oh, you mean for the whole PowerPoint?
You have to change to a new clip as it slides through? No, you don't, right?
No, you don't have to.
Keep on talking. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. I thought you meant like if you were importing video clips. Sorry.
No, just the audio clip, because if you're on a different slide than where the clip started, then that doesn't matter. So that's just a really cool idea.
The reason I really like using PowerPoint with Voicethread is because, so for my chemistry class or my grade 9 or 10 science class, I could create a list or a PowerPoint with I just put different elements, just a symbol on, 29 different slides, imported it, and then the students would go to their own elements and they would explain how many protons, neutrons, electrons they had based on the periodic table. And they would talk about that on their own slide. So I find that PowerPoint is an easy way to create a whole bunch of different ones that students can go on and use. Okay, so I'm going to put a chat in that voicethread education.wikispaces.com. I'm going to be quiet for about 2 minutes, or at least try. And if you could go to that link, and then on the front page, click sample Voicethreads, and then you can take a look at a couple of the different samples of the Voicethreads. So I'll be quiet for 2 minutes. You follow the link that's in the chat right there, click on sample Voicethreads, play a few of the Voicethreads, and then come on back and let me know that you're back. And I will hush up for a couple seconds. Sorry, Jeff, I started answering your question without my mic on. So in the part of the actual Voicethread website is your mouse turns into a little pen as you're recording your voice. So as they click record and start talking, their little mouse turns into a pen tool and they can write right on the screen. That link that I sent you there, the Voicethread education.wikispaces, that's a wiki from an OTF Connect session like tonight that I did a really long time ago that was all about Voicethread. So there's actually in the resources page on the OTF website an archive session about Voicethread and how to set it up and use it, and that wiki is still up with all those videos and how-tos. So by all means, use that tool for a 1.5 years. Okay. Perfect. So we'll add that link to the resources from this session. It's also in this Google Doc, that link there. Yeah, so I just like using Voicethread with BYOD because it evens out the playing field, because some of those kids that have the iPads have a really nice ability to write on the screen and record how they think or what they're thinking. But I find that the Voicethread lets kids with other devices do that as well. Any questions about the Voicethread or comments or ways that you might be able to use it in class or? Oh, time to reset it. That's great. What kind of stuff would you use it for, Janice? You can grab the mic if you want.
I actually set up a red maple and silver birch discussion group because I couldn't meet with all the kids, so they were able to log on and it was like we were having a discussion. So I'd post questions for each section and then the kids would all give their responses. And then we were going to use it as an assessment piece where there were several pieces of art and the kids were going to log on and talk about the elements they saw in the art piece. But the thing we couldn't figure out was how to make it so that the second and third and fourth responders didn't just listen to what the first person had already said or typed or called in or however they used it. So we were toying with the idea of, you know, the first 3 people had to look at the first picture and the next 3 people had to look at the next one. But we never ended up using it. And then I've also used it as a teaching tool where I'll do a math lesson with stuff and then I can draw to it, and then any kids that are away can just watch that lesson by logging onto there. But like I said, I haven't used it for almost a year.
That's great, though. And you're concerned about that question about the, about, you know, having other kids listen, is exactly why I started importing PowerPoint presentations into it, is because I could create a separate slide or a separate image for every student to work with. But yeah, that is one of the downfalls. You can't, in other learning management systems that I use, there's settings that let you make it so that students can only see what others have posted after they've posted. That would be very useful in a Voicethread, and I've never even thought of it. It's actually something we should probably send off to the company and see if they couldn't add that as a feature.
Because there's no way to do like a hide the responses or like a delayed thing or a moderate responses. So
there is a moderate responses. Would that work? There's a moderate responses so that nobody can see any of the responses until you've approved them. You could just hold off on approving.
That probably would work then.
Yeah, and there's a video clip on how to do that on that wiki.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, I never even thought of that until you said moderate. I don't know why that word had to trigger it, but it did. Yeah, so anyway, so Voicethread is one of the tools I still like to use with BYOD, just because it lets some of the kids write on the screen. Another tool that I've used before is Evernote, but just like Chris said, a lot of his students are using OneNote. My students are going to start using OneNote soon when we get our full Microsoft Office 365. Right now we have the email component of it, but we're getting all of the collaborative part, very much like Google Apps. And so I have a feeling that I won't be using Evernote as much once we all get the OneNote access, but that will kind of take over.
Can I add?
Please do.
With the OneNote, it's great if they have a tablet with a stylus, which allows them to write, because OneNote, at least in some of the newer versions, it can do script writing, so it can recognize your handwriting and put it into actual text.
Really?
Yeah. It can do that now.
I have no idea.
It's not great if you don't have that stylus ability. Right. So if you have a regular laptop, OneNote's great for just typing in things, but for math, it's restrictive because you can't do the equations. But with the stylus, it will recognize the equations. At least the newer versions of OneNote. The newer versions of OneNote will do it.
I had no idea. That's really interesting. OneNote, it's not free, but it's part, so it depends on what your board has gone to in terms of using tools. Our board is going to this Office 365, where our students will have access to a little web version of OneNote, a web version of Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint. How do your students access OneNote, Chris?
It would have to be it came with their computer.
Okay,
at the present moment, whatever device they brought on whatever software they have, it would be part of that. We had an opportunity to use it and experiment with it because we managed to get teachers tablets to use, and it had OneNote on it, so teachers were playing around with it.
Very cool. I wonder if and I assume it would, but there's an iPad version of OneNote, but I haven't had a chance to play with it yet because we don't have an active account yet for it.
Right. One caution about the Google Docs, or the Google Drive, or the Google applications.
Yep.
It's very convenient because it's a level platform, I should say, for any kids with any device that can access it. But what we've noticed is your school network has to have the capacity for it, and Google Apps has been trying to also keep up with the demand. There have been times when, I say, okay guys, fire it up, and I have 27 kids all at once going on there, and things slow down quite a bit. So your school network has to be bumped up, for one, to get the bandwidth, and also don't be surprised if, your class won't be the only class using it. So, let's say a few hundred kids in every school using it, it can slow down sometimes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple other tools that I'll just kind of highlight is this Shobi, and this is a new one to me. I haven't had a whole lot, but it's Have you, before you turn your mic off, Chris, keep it on for a second. Janice asked the question if a staggered login makes a difference. So if your kids answer log in at different times.
It can, I guess, but I guess because I'm just thinking it as we move on from the grade 9s, and then the new grade 9s come in, and the grade 10s, the existing grade 10s have it. Because all of the grade 9s are asked to bring it in, that's a quarter of our school. So, at any given time, let's say they're all being asked to go on there, then you could only at best stagger your kids logging in.
Right.
And, if you stagger them 5 minutes in 5-minute increments, or even like 2-minute increments, that's class time that's eating away.
Yeah.
The kids just want to get on there. They're like, okay, let's just get on there.
Right.
And we've tried, but it's a nature of learning what the limitations are of the system. And actually, our board had to come in and bump up all our wireless networking in the entire school, because one of the problems is that even when the kids aren't using it in class, they're using it during lunch. So lunchtime, period 3 and 4, which is common for grade 9s and common for grade 10s, the network slows down significantly sometimes because they're on there, and they're on YouTube, they're gaming, they're doing everything on the computers.
Yeah, all the high media or high bandwidth stuff. Our board has quadrupled the drops in our school since the summer, over the summer and the beginning of this year, and we don't even have the kids coming in until next fall. So, because only 2 schools in our school board are doing it independently, our school and another, so they've just come in and quadrupled it. How many schools in your school board are doing this, Chris?
Apart from ULOC, I think we're the second one that's rolling it out.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so the Shobi app is another one that I found to help with some of the mechanics of the BYOD. For some of I found this one's really good for some of the teachers that aren't as comfortable with the more involved tools. And it has a website version, so I can use it on a laptop. But the iPad version is even better for a teacher if they had an iPad, because it lets them mark up the pages. So basically, Shobi lets you just create an assignment. Students are part of your class. They go to shobi.com, log in, and they see the assignment there, the due date. I can post files, rubrics, whatever it is I want, and then they can upload their files. So it's really like a Dropbox on steroids. Once the kids have handed it in, I can take their documents and I can upload more documents. So if I had a separate document with a rubric, I could go through and throw in some feedback and send it and just put it back in that Dropbox so the kids could access it later. Or if I was using my iPad app of Shobi, I could write right on their page and then put it back up into the Dropbox for them to see. So it's free. And on the iPad, you can mark up with the free account if you have another app that does the markup on it on your iPad. It just connects right with that other app, lets you mark it up, and then puts it back on. And there is a document there that I've got that link to in this Google Doc, and it's a PDF how-to for using Shobi. I find that that's been really helpful for some teachers who are hesitant with the use of some of the more complicated tools. So if they're hesitant about the full learning management system, our school, we have Moodle, but we also have the D2L. We use a lot of the D2L. So a lot of our teachers are spending the time this year really getting into D2L, which is ministry supported. But it's intimidating for a few of them. So for the ones that are really scared, we're leaning them towards this, and for the ones that have iPads, we're sending them to this one to try for the descriptive feedback piece. The other tool, just to quickly mention for teachers that aren't using a full-on learning management system, is Edmodo. Have you guys ever used Edmodo before? Has anyone ever used Edmodo? No. So Edmodo is like Facebook for classes. It basically, when you open it up, it looks like a Facebook stream, but it's locked down. So my students can't be talking to each other in the background at all. They can only talk to each other where I can see it out in the public. So I can post activities. So we have a math teacher in my school, and this has been the perfect comfort level for him. He is one of those teachers that does, oh, sorry, Janice, I don't mean to rush you. He's one of those teachers that I think the D2L and the Moodle for him is a bit too organized, if you will. He's a little bit more on the fly. He's well prepared for his classes, but he likes to do a lot of things for the moment. So Edmodo really works for him to do really quick activities in class with his grade 10s, with their phones, and Edmodo works on any possible device. Any web browser, and then lots of different devices have apps that make it even better, a better interface than the web browser. And basically you can post documents, share materials, share videos, and there are drop boxes on there for students to submit assignments, and you can actually do grading, and there is a quiz feature within it. Ooh, that sounds great with math. Eh? It's funny that we both have math examples with Edmodo. I think a lot of the math teachers like the organic aspect of some of the Edmodo part. What was the math unit that they tried? Do you have anything else you could share about that, Karen? You can grab the mic if you wouldn't mind. Thanks. No stress though. No worries if you can't. Sorry, I didn't mean to pressure you there. So some of the other tools. Do any of you have any tools that you've used that have worked really well with BYOD, with a wide range of devices? Or is there something that you want to figure out how to do that maybe I know a tool that might help with that?
Right now, as the teacher librarian, we've just purchased a bunch of iPads, and I'm in charge of maintaining 20 of them. And I'm hearing all kinds of conflicting stories about the best way to go about managing them. So we're using the volume purchasing thing, and I've heard, oh, you need configurator, and then I've heard people say no, because then you can't just plug them into a computer in your classroom and have it recognize it, almost like it recognizes a USB, that once you've used configurator, that causes problems. And the whole, because they're designed as personal devices, having them at a school and using them sort of as a network thing is challenging to begin with. So I'm sort of struggling with the whole, like, how do I keep who's done what straight? Right now, I just have a designated computer that when I upload stuff, it just goes into like a big folder that has that class's stuff on it. And then we're just worried about, you know, the whole what happens when kids decide to put a password on something and they're not supposed to. So right now we have a password on it, but it's only a matter of time until a careless teacher sort of logs it in front of, you know, some of our grade 8s. So the whole maintenance of, we have devices for, we're a pretty needy school, so for the kids who can't afford to bring one and they're never going to afford to bring one, we have some options. But the other frustration is I see especially the iPads as being tools that are great for producing as opposed to just consuming. Because if you're just going to use them to like read the internet, you can get much, much, much cheaper devices. And just moving teachers sort of up that SAMR model instead of just using them as like internet reading kinds of things. So I'm struggling with all of those issues.
And I love to hear the struggle part that you said at the end. I mean, you just made me a full-on supporter. The fact that you said, you know, the iPads are great at the media creation, otherwise why are you using an iPad? We have some iPads in my school, and that is what I say with teachers all the time. Why do you need the iPads for that activity? If you want to just use Edmodo, if you want to, even in creating a movie, I mean, we have movie-making software on a lot of our computers, but I do understand why they might want to do that on the iPad. That does make it slicker, if you will. But yeah, we go through the exact same conversations in our school all the time. You know, if you know, don't whine and complain that you don't have access to all the iPads in the school, unless those, you know, you've used these computers at times that you can. I use the volume purchasing plan as well, and I also use Configurator. I have just started using Configurator in the fall, and I actually I'm not teaching in a class in the school because I'm on 2 different sites, and so I'm actually not using them in the classroom, the ones that I've configured. So I thought I could plug them in still and take stuff off of them. I thought that there was a setting in Configurator that let me set that but I haven't tested it. So if you sent, I'll give you my email after, but if you sent me an email with that question, I'll try it with one of the iPads at that school and see if it works. Configurator takes care of all those problems like with passwords and stuff because I pump it into the configurator and it wipes them. But that being said, if you've already set it up with the volume purchase plan and so do you have each one of your iPads set up with a different Apple ID then?
Yep.
So you've used those codes to connect to a different Apple ID, so you wouldn't want to go to the configurator now, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, I think you can set it up though, that like if you decided on a new app tomorrow, you can set all the settings up and put any new apps that you bought the codes for. And then everyone would have to re-log back in as their Apple ID on each one and download those. But
one of the things we're trying to do is not go app crazy.
Yeah.
So when a teacher comes in and they're all like crazy excited about something, they actually have to do a little presentation to our technology committee to convince the committee, and they're pretty tough, that this is absolutely affords some advantage that what we have on there doesn't already afford. So we sort of went with some basic apps, and if they want something new, they have to really convince us that it can do something that we can't do without.
Good for you. We went app crazy last year because we were doing them all on the same Apple ID, so it didn't matter. I mean, we spent $100 for the whole year and put on every app we could ever want. But this year, now that we've gone to the volume purchasing plan, we've done exactly that. We pared it right down. We realized how many of the apps that we actually were using were free or cheap, and we get them for 50% off. They started purchasing over 20 of them. So we pared right down as well, and we haven't come up with a perfect way yet of how to say yes and no to some. It's been a little bit one-sided making the call, but that's a great plan. I love that plan, so to take it to a committee. But yeah, that's a tough call with the configurator. That's a tough decision because maintaining that many different Apple IDs and iPads is tough. Does anybody else have any tools that you've used with What do you use as your simple voice recording app? Just simple, straightforward. One of the best ones, and it's on this Google Doc that we have on the screens, is Audioboo. I think it's actually audioboo.fm. There's an app for iDevices because there is some Flash, but then the website works well. And I've used it on a BlackBerry tablet and an Android as well. And it gives you a web, like if you're recording on it, it posts it on the web, so if that's what you're looking to do. And then you can share that link or embed it anywhere. If you're looking for on the iPad, then we splurged for GarageBand. If you're looking for on the computer, Audacity, because it's free and it can be downloaded onto any computer, Mac or PC. Is that what you were asking? Have you, Jeff? Can you tell me how you've used Class Dojo? Because, sorry, let me finish up Janice's question and then I'll come back to that. I have a little bit of ADD, sorry. Yeah, we use Audioboo all the time so that students can record it and then we can just share the link as we need to, or not share the link if we don't need to, but it's on the web and it can be used on any device. Jeff.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. Jeff, could you elaborate a little bit on how you've used Class Dojo and how you found it? So Class Dojo lets you put in your class, and it lets you, yeah. That's excellent. So basically you can put in their attendance, and then you can use positive points for when they're doing positive behaviors. Right. So every time they were on task, they got a point, and when they were being disruptive, they would have a negative point. So did you have your Class Dojo projected up on the board then, Jeff, while you were using it during a class? Right. So she had it up on that's the part I'm missing. I work in an alternative program for part of the day, and I've been using it because the students keep asking for these point systems that allow them to have rewards after a certain amount of points and stuff, unfortunately, but they keep requesting it. So I looked into this Class Dojo, but I think the part I'm missing is not having it projected so that when they go and look on it, like, because they can go log in and they can look at their own point system anytime they want. I think I need to have it up on the board and apparent at all times so that the feedback is immediate. So I think that's what I'm missing. The kids have to log in to see it. I can project it up on the board if I want. If I project the whole class view, then yes, they can see each other's. But when they log in, they only see their own. Is that what you're asking, Lily?
I'm just I find that...
It depends on what you're doing. When you...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so when you put it up, basically you just see theirs for that period. So when I'm posting it up, I don't see their overall accumulation. I see for that day. So it's only the kids that are there because you do attendance first, and then it pops up the kids that are there for the day. And then they're just getting red or green ticks up beside their name based on different behaviors that you're choosing. So yeah, I suppose it could be disadvantageous, but it's the same thing as when teachers would put on the board. You know, they're kind of classroom management little games that they would play in class. And then when the student logs in, they only see their own overall accumulation and what it is. I think I do need to try the part of putting it on the board. They all know when each other's on task or off task. They all know when each other's getting points and not anyways. I mean, I have a small class in general at an alt school, but yeah. I hear you, Janice. And for that reason exactly is why, not the only reason why by any stretch of the imagination, but is a good portion of why my school is heading in the fall to every single grade 9 having a device, because I found as a teacher, I could plan these excellent learning activities, but if only half my kids had devices, I was putting the other half in a really bad position where they couldn't access the resources we needed for class. So we're going to the full on, and we have more buy-in for teacher professional development and teachers changing things and taking risks this year than we have in any ever before, because they now know that every single grade 9 is walking in the door in the fall with a laptop or a tablet with a keyboard. That we're expecting them to bring their own, and if they don't, they'll get one to sign out for the entire year, one that they take home, that they use at night, and they use on the weekends. So every single grade 9 will have a device in their hands. And the teacher buy-in to that change has been huge. And we're starting to be able to plan now for counting on every kid having the device, not just a few. So we're not living in these two different worlds, having to plan a paper backup and an online version. And Chris is doing the same thing right now in his school. All of his grade 9s have devices. Yep, so we have, I'm just going to go back to our original wiki. Let me show you. Let me give me 1 second here. Do you see a types of devices page on the screen? Awesome.
No, I see a sign that says digital tools.
Oh. And you're on the home, so we're all on different pages. This is great. Give me a second. I'm going to trick the system into.
Oh,
I know that was
that for you.
Yeah. And let me just get the actual link here. Let's try. Okay, now do we have the types of devices on the screen?
Yep.
Awesome. At the very bottom.
Sharing classroom ideas for.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Types of devices. Yeah, no worries there, Jeff. And actually, you don't have to use Padlet here. I think the three of us were just kind of chatting it out anyways. But at the very bottom of that page, there's a file there created for the grade 9 parents, PDF. That's what we're telling parents about devices. That's our message. We're being very flexible. We want a laptop or a tablet that they can type on effectively. So if they need a keyboard, they need a keyboard. So that's what we're telling them.
There we go. Now I see it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, right at the bottom there. Okay. So do you guys see learning activities for BYOD on the screen right now? Awesome. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Woohoo! Well, serious here. So what I was hoping, and if you guys have some other tools that you want to talk about for BYOD, either from that list on that Google Doc, and don't forget that this, let me just grab the link 1 second, sorry. The link to this wiki, and the wiki has the link to the Google Doc in it with all those tools that we had there. We didn't go through very many of them. That wiki is not going anywhere. So this wiki with all these resources are here forever and ever. Well, I mean, wiki spaces goes down, we're all in trouble. But so if there's any other tools you want to talk about, that's absolutely fine and great. But I was thinking that to kind of guide our conversation next, we could talk about possible learning activities. What can you do with the BYOD in your classroom? Like, what are some of the learning activities? And one of the examples I had, and this was just something I tried, and there were parts of it that worked really, really well and parts of it that I would fix up next time. But with my grade 10 science class, so each group, I gave them each a different medical case study. So I found some case studies, adapted them for my use, and they were really tough medical problems, but really fun ones. So a lot of them were celebrities. So we had Jimi Hendrix and alcohol consumption, alcohol poisoning. There was a celebrity who had anorexia. There was somebody, somebody who climbed a mountain and had respiratory problems from the pressure. But some really hardcore medical case studies that were designed for college programs. I gave this to my grade 10s and I said, okay, research your body system, choose your case study, research your body system, choose a specialized cell that relates to your body system that you want to study under the microscope, and create yourself a lab for studying some sort of investigation that you want to maybe compare it to the structure of the cell to another type of specialized cell, or to a skin cell or something. And then, so that was part of it. They had to choose and plan a dissection that related to their body system. So I actually had some students that aren't identified gifted, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were, do a case study that related to the brain and the nervous system. And so they dissected sheep brains. And they had to document, so they had to go and find instructions online and adapt them for their own dissection. So some of them did frogs, we had a pig, we had a fish, and we had the sheep brains, I think. And they all had to design their own dissection and what they were looking for, and then document it and share it. And then at the end, they had to archive and document or present basically all their learning to the rest of the class. So some of them archived it digitally, some of them got up and presented it. But without BYOD, there's absolutely no way I could have done this. First of all, I couldn't have had the school computers for 3 weeks straight. But we also needed all of the different types of devices that kids had on them. We needed the iPad or the iPod Touch to take pictures and video, and then to write on it, and some kids with iPads to mark up the dissections. Some of the kids that had devices that could create little animations as part of their documenting part of it. So for me, this is kind of part of the richness that the BYOD adds to it. So I created a table below that had a few different types of activities that could be done using different tools, with a list of possible tools that could help them. But I was wondering, are there any activities that you would like to do or have done with BYOD that either worked well or didn't work? Is there any sort of activity you kind of would like to try? Talking head, yes, sorry. Let me find an example of a talking head. Give me a second. I couldn't figure out what else to call that. But there are apps and there are websites that let you record your audio, and it takes the little head and it makes them start talking. They speak it for you. They speak your voice, and it creates a little video from it. So does anybody have any ideas on activities they'd like to do with BYOD or have done?
For math, I've tried a few things. The assignments on Google Documents, where I've shared a template assignment, and then they take it and then add the content in their own document and share it back with me, and I can provide comments directly on their documents for formative feedback prior to them sharing the final version. And that seemed to work fairly well, but it wasn't like a math solving a math equation, perhaps, if you know what I mean.
So it was more like a communication aspect?
It was more of a research assignment. Okay. With math. I've tried, one of the things in Google Documents is the it's kind of like a poll software where you create a Google form, and we created like a math quiz using that, a formative math quiz. And one of the scripts you can add to it is called Flubaroo, and it will mark it for you and email the results back to the students.
Oh,
So that's kind of cool. The other thing I've done is, and this one kind of backfired a little bit because this is one that didn't make sense. So because it's grade 9, they have to do EQAO. What I did was I shared 3 open response questions with, I mean 3 different 8 different documents of the same 3 questions, and those would become the groupings, group A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And I said, okay, you 4 students, you're going to go and you're going to work in document A, and you 4 students, you work in document B, and so on. So I split up the class. And I said, okay, as a group, work together and come up with the solutions and put it in that particular document so that it's recorded and everyone can see it. When I say it backfired is in the sense that the collaborative piece of it, where I thought, oh, it would be great they could collaborate using computers. Well, they're sitting right in front of them. They're sitting right in front of each other. They don't need to have a computer open. Right. So it became kind of restrictive because they're trying to chat using the computer and they're sitting right in front of each other. It became a bit counterproductive because it took longer for them to solve the problem instead of just taking pen and paper, hunching over the desk, solving it, and then putting one solution. So I've modified things like that where I say, okay, only one computer screen open at a time at a group. So if there's 4 of them, only one computer screen shared for 4, and then they have to talk about it and then put in ideas. Yeah. Otherwise, it actually it takes longer for them to get work done.
It distracts them. Right.
It does. And then what inevitably happens is 3 of them end up working on the 3 documents, and the last one's like, well, I got nothing to do. I'll go surf the internet. So you kind of have to watch out for that too.
Right. While someone else is working away, they focus as well. Math is a tough one.
Now, what I was thinking I might try, one of the things I might try is putting them into groups, but don't put them at the table. Have them spread across the classroom at the tables they're at, but they're broken up into different groups, and then see what they would do with the computers to collaborate as though they're across different continents or across different cities or something, and then they're trying to collaborate to come up with a solution. That might be interesting.
See if they all participate more that
exercise.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So do you use images for students to submit? Sorry, I'm stuttering a bit. Do you have students take pictures of their work ever to submit their assignments if they needed to? With the math, I must imagine it's a little bit difficult.
I haven't tried that, but that might be an idea. Have them solve something and then submit it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the programs. I have some of my students in my own school do that with their math. They just take a picture of it and put it in the Dropbox, but only just because then I can write on the page to give them their feedback, and then they have that all the time. Like they just wanted to have a digital version of it. I have a couple of students with some weak organizational skills. That makes it easier, but yeah, it's a tough one with the math.
Yeah.
With all different devices.
Yeah, with the other subjects, I know some of the other teachers have had some great luck with the note-taking, because even though there's an equation editor in math, it's slow. It's slow to use an equation editor. So with geography, the geography teacher and actually the French teachers have been using it a lot. What they've done is have an online binder. So every student takes all of their notes in this online binder. And what she does, she shares, I guess, the template that she's going to use for that lesson. The kids have the template, they fill in the template, they add their notes onto it. She has specific rules, or I should say, templates for how they should name each file and date and unit. And then what she will do is they've each shared it with her. She will actually review their notebooks and use that for learning skills.
Right. Cool. Very cool. So Jeff was talking about doing a... Oh, yep. Sorry, Louise?
No. Go with Jeff first.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, he has a good couple comments there about Rick Mercer rants. And I can imagine BYOD really supporting that, because it wouldn't matter what tool you use to do the video part. You could have a student using even a cell phone, even an old school cell phone, not even a smartphone, but to record the video, and then throw it onto another kid's computer to make their titles and add music in the background if they wanted to. But or they could be using one of those talking heads to do a rant, or it wouldn't matter what tool they used for the rant. But the Rick Mercer style rant, like you said, there's a lot of how did you word that? There's more punch packed into a video than just standing in front of the class and reading the speech rant. Yeah, because they can make it a little bit appealing. But the other thing is too is that they can document their learning and archive it and share it with others. That's a great idea, Jeff. And Louise, what were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off.
Sorry, just added a comment in there. Just listening to Chris talk there, and you as well, Jacqueline, when about taking pictures of some of their math work and then being able to provide feedback and give it to them, and then they have it. I was thinking from the parent side of things. So if a lot of the work that they're doing ends up being in online spaces, do you find that it creates more bridges between home and school and helps students when they're at home, even though if they might not have that device with them? And maybe you can tell me whether or not when you assign a device to the student, is it something they get to carry with them at all times, or is it something that they have to leave at school when they go? And what kind of feedback have you gotten from parents? When you said about the math thing, one of the things that I know in the pen and paper world is that if a student has an activity or like a small quiz or something like that, that's a small assessment that's building up towards a larger assessment, often the teacher collects it and keeps those things. And as a parent, I found that when it came time to get ready for the larger test, we didn't have any of that progressive assessments that my child had to work from, so that we knew. And I'm wondering whether there's some options in there too.
Yeah, so I found with my science class last year, at parents' night, that was one of the first things. The dad's like, I don't know how to help her. She doesn't come home with the textbook. She doesn't have the book that I can open up and say, let's go. And so it was a really eye-opening for me. I've worked with such at-risk students for so long until, I hadn't been in the classroom for years until last year. And before that, I had worked almost explicitly with at-risk students, so all this parent support caught me off guard. And I had to, on the fly, I created an auditor account for my online classroom. I've always had two places for my classes. I have a private lockdown classroom that all of their day-to-day learning stuff goes on, and then we have a sharing site, like a blog, where we post student work that we want to publish and share with the world, and we publish materials out there. I created an auditor account for my online classroom so that the parents could log in, and at work or at home, it didn't matter. They could go and check it out and could see all the same notes and reminders that my students did. So it definitely helped with that aspect. And just the fact that my students were using online tools naturally led parents to communicate more with me by email, which I don't know if it's just a convenience thing over the phone call. I had more parent communication last year than I ever have in the rest of my entire career. And in terms of the devices for my students at our school, if they don't come with their own, they get given one that they take home with them for the whole year, or at least semester, and we might have to refresh them in between the semester. But the other thing that I did last year with my students is I ran an online parents' night the first week of school. So like the second or third day of classes, I ran an online Adobe Connect session, much like we're doing tonight, where I invited all the parents to log in. I pulled up our class website, I pulled up our class management system, and I walked them through how we'd be using the different tools to support the kids' learning, and it fielded all their questions, because it was a lot of new stuff for them, and so there were some concerns from some of the parents about online use, and they loved that very first week of class to have that online web session before parent-teacher interviews and all that, and the parents that attended that the parents that attended that were my biggest supporters throughout the year, and a couple of them ended up being for some very at-risk students in the class I was teaching. And they connected with me for the rest of the semester after that. So, I mean, that doesn't relate explicitly to BYOD, but those parents that joined online sure were a lot more willing to send their kids with the tools and the devices once they saw me show them online what it was I was willing to do and what it was that we were going to do with the devices, that it wasn't just messing around on Facebook. I'm sure they did that all once, however. And I'm sure they did it in my class as well. Well, I know they did, but it's all nature of the beast. But they, once I could show the parents what we were doing, it also helped with that. So some of the other learning activities I had listed here was just, there's that real-time online discussion, and I've listed a couple of tools for that. One of the most effective ways or effective uses of an online discussion I had was with my grade 9 students last year, and we watched a video that's on YouTube, and it's called Home, and it's super long documentary about the state of the earth and climate change, and we're all going to die. No, but it's pretty dramatic at times. And my students had a lot of questions about it, but a lot of them, I found out through this online discussion, had a lot of the answers. I had a couple students in my class that were experts on tar sands. I had a couple of students in my class that were experts on the fishing industry and some of that stuff. And so one kid would ask a question in this online real-time chat, and the others would jump in with links and resources and share. And I have never seen my students more engaged on, thanks Liz for putting that home video on there. It was great for an ecosystem unit. And I only planned on showing it in like 15-minute increments over a series of a period of time. And I started it on the day right before Easter break, and they wanted to watch it for the whole period. Once they started it, they didn't want me to turn it off. So I ended up, and they were so engaged that I left them, but it ended at the end of the period in this really depressing state. And the last 25, 35 minutes of the video picks right back up, but they had to wait over Easter break, and so they all came back in on the Tuesday. And the words out of their mouths as they came in were, "Ms. Calder, I've had an epiphany," or, I've decided if we don't do something like today, just, the world's going to go to hell. Like, it was just the funniest thing. I've never seen a bunch of them. So they all took on little projects and worked on, what they were going to do to make the world a better place. But that online discussion, my students would have been asleep at their desk if that online discussion hadn't been happening. And the fact that I found out that I had these little experts in my classroom that I had no idea about. So that kind of real-time discussion was fascinating. The other way I've used discussion is asynchronous. So when kids can't be there all at the same time, or when one posts and then there's a time gap between the others. And I find that I'm getting some deeper conversation that way, but I'm finding that that takes training and time. Right off the bat, my kids just wanted to type little snippets in text speak. I'm just going to take a second here and read Jeannie's post or her chat here. That's awesome, Jamie. So is that what you were asking about the audio for?
Yep.
And what are you using right now for that?
I actually just used Explain Everything, and we just didn't bother using the slide at all. We just let him record right onto it. And it was fascinating that when he just listened to a bit of himself, pushed pause, he could actually write it. But he could not, no matter what we did, go from thinking it to writing it.
So my suggestion earlier of AudioBoo probably isn't best in that case because you don't need it published on the web. You don't need to waste all that bandwidth and time processing it. Is he using an iPad then?
Yeah, he was.
So it's probably better just to, oh, I know. There used to be, that I used before, an app called SoundNote. I'll type it in the chat. I'll try and find a link to it after. It did let you write on the screen and record your voice, but it just looked like a simple piece of paper. So you could do lots of audio recordings. So he could almost have like a recording right beside, you know, you could just title it and then you could record it beside it so you can go back and look at it later. But that might be worth looking at. But you probably just want like an audio, a voice memo app would probably be best.
One of the most successful discussion things I've done was I set up 5 different today's meet rooms, and so on just my whiteboard, I assigned very strategically certain kids to a certain room. So all of my really mouthy, confident kids who never shut up, I put them in the same room, and then I have ELL learners, and I put all the ELL learners in one room. And then I have kids who basically, they're really smart, but they don't talk. So I put those kids all in one room. And so each of the rooms were very strategically set up. And then I just said, you know, tell me what you already know about fractions. And if we had have had that discussion with them just sitting in their normal table groups, the mouthy kids would have just taken over the discussion. The kids who never talk wouldn't have said anything. But the fact that they were on their devices having a conversation with kids who were similar to them was amazing. And then I could archive the transcript of what they'd said. And so the kids who wrote, and I of course made them sign in with their name because I said I need to know who's saying what. But afterwards I was able to look at those archived transcripts and see, like, this person says they're terrified of fractions, and this person seems super confident and says, like, oh, they're easy, you know, I've been doing them. Anyway, it was a really successful thing to do in terms of discussion.
That is awesome. That is so cool. Yeah, I find that the online discussion, I don't want it to replace face-to-face, and I'm nervous that a lot of people see the BYOD thing as being online learning, and I'm really nervous of that. That's the difference in online learning where I'm interacting with a computer and the BYOD or the blended learning. I don't want my class to be online learning. I like online learning, don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place, and I have lots of students who benefit from online learning. But I think that our classroom environment, especially with teenagers, has so much to offer that we really need to take the best of the online component and meld it in. And the things that you've just said there, Janice, and the things that Chris said earlier about, you know, it wasn't the right time and place for that technology. It distracted from the learning. That it's, I don't know, it just makes me really happy to hear all these types of things where people are, you know, really focusing on the right things for the technology use. And I'm hoping this is indicators of the whole province, and that we're moving beyond that. We're just trying to stuff the technology in as a stopgap and to make it look like we're using technology and that we're advanced. That we're really actually focusing on using it for the right things. It makes me very happy. Does anyone have something that they didn't get answered or solved, or that they were really hoping to find out tonight, or some other cool thing that they wanted to share? This wiki has 800 times more stuff than we covered. If you, that link to different tools that work on all devices, the page that I'm on right now with different learning activities, with some suggestions of apps and websites that work on different devices that can do the same activity. So, you know, that's one of the biggest transitions for teachers, is that my kids aren't going to all be on the same website. They're not all going to be using the same tools. If they're going to be creating tutorials, then the students that have a laptop might be using a free download of Jing. The students that have an iPad might be using Explain Everything. The students that have another kind of tablet might be using a Voicethread. That's really tough for teachers to get, because, you know, it puts a lot of the control into the students' hands. But has anyone have anything that they'd like to share or ask about?
I think as long as the teachers are willing to try, then the kids will help them through it. I know we had some teachers who were terrified coming into the semester with the one-to-one digital program, and because they're like, well, I don't even own a computer, and how am I going to help these kids figure it out? And really, it was just, you know, the sharing between the teachers. You know, here's what I tried. So, and we don't try everything. We try what works, and if it works, we just stay with it. What they found was, you know, if the teachers a little less experience with the technology, the kids are more than willing to jump in and help. And you know, especially grade 9s, you definitely get a lot of help from the grade 9s because they're very impressionable.
That's awesome. And so do you find that students are taking what is done in one class, like a tool or an activity, and are they carrying it over into the other classes and sharing it with those teachers?
Well, our staff is pretty good with sharing. So at our monthly staff meetings, we share with each other, and what we found is people are latching on to other people. So like if I hear a certain teacher, like the geography teacher is doing this, you know, I'll just kind of take a walk over and just say, hey, do you have 5 minutes during lunch to show me what you're doing? And then, you know, just that kind of osmosis effect will happen, and people are just kind of like walking around like, oh, I heard you were doing this, show me how you do that. And then all of a sudden everybody's kind of like sharing little bit by little bit. Not every, you know, I mean, I don't get to see everyone, but you know, little bit by little bit you're getting stuff from each other, and then as long as you're willing to try, you know, it works, great. If it doesn't work for something, then you know, you put it in your back pocket or something else.
That's great. Can I ask if you three use Twitter at all?
Twitter, I personally don't have a Twitter account.
Here's my thought, is I'd love to continue on some of this conversation, and Twitter does not have to be the place. I'm just trying to find a place. I'm going to put my email address on here, and if you're interested in continuing on any of the conversation or even just having each other's email addresses, I've got Janice's Twitter account right now, then send me an email at that address, and we can and I'll reply with whichever ones of you guys send me a message, and then I'll just create a message to all of us, and perfect. And then we can just share other ideas and things that we think of, because I think that I'm actually, sorry, Surya and Louise, I'm really happy with a really small group tonight. I think that hearing all three of you guys had so much to contribute and share that I would love to be able to call and ask other questions. I think Chris, having the experience that you've had with rolling it out already, Janice, I think you have an amazing amount of experience with the iPads, and then with some of the activities of the differentiation and that personalization part. And Jeff, you've really had a